it's the beginning of April now, and I'm going to show you what I will be doing this month. As you can see, it's beautiful and sunny outside. It's really warm in the greenhouse. It's about 20 odd degrees in the greenhouse. However, outside it is a little bit chilly, so it's about 10 or 12 degrees. So in the greenhouse I can just have my t-shirt on, but if I pop outside I have to put my coat on. But hopefully soon that will change. We are now in British summertime. The clocks in the UK have changed, so it means that yes, okay, it gets lighter a little bit later in the morning, but we get up at 6:30 and it's already light, and it's just wonderful. And it means that the sun now doesn't set at this time of year until about 7:30, 7:45. So things can only get better. So it's just wonderful. Now, everything in the greenhouse has been going really, really well. I have been pricking out so many things, so many seedlings. I've still got a load more to do, but they're all doing really well. Some, maybe you can see some. I had to move things around so I could get in. So these are some of the tomatoes. They're doing really well. So these are their baby leaves. So they've got their second lot and then their third lot of leaves on. Let's pop him back. The onions are getting there, and the leeks are about the same. So they're about 4 inches tall, but they've still got lots more growing to do. I need to get the broad beans out in the garden. Can you see them here? They're sort of, they're getting quite tall. So that's another thing that I will be doing very, very soon. I've got lots of little flowers which are doing absolutely brilliantly. So yes, it's going really well. But the seeds that I will be sowing in April are as follows. So we're going to do these in little groups. Now, most of these seeds get sown in exactly the same way. So I will just show you how I'm going to sow one of them, and then the rest will be the same. Some of them get sown slightly differently. So again, I will clump those together and I will sow one of those, and then all the other ones you need to sow the same. So let's start off with some herbs. So I've got some sage. Now you can obviously always buy the little plants and then grow them on yourself. It's entirely up to you. There's, you know, you're looking after them, so you are still growing them. There's oregano, and I've got some rocket as well. Some Genovese basil, which is fabulous. Some lemon coriander, and some normal coriander. So they're all my herbs. I then have a few more brassicas to sow. I've got quite a few, never mind. But these seedlings are doing really, really well. They're about so big of the ones that I sowed last month. So I've got some cauliflowers, they're little purple ones here. I love these. These are Romanesco. I have got some chicory, some dwarf kale, which the chickens love, some wok brock, which did really well, some Swiss chard, which again the chickens seem to like and is really nice. It will actually sort of go back over the winter and then just come back again and again. Some more Swiss chard. So I've got a peppermint one. I don't know whether it actually tastes of peppermint, but we'll soon see. And the lovely rainbow one, which is brilliant. When I do the blog of this, I will put all the links on so that you can get them yourselves. Now, I sowed some lettuce seeds at the beginning of March. They've been growing really, really well. So I pricked these ones out the other day. So you can see that they're sort of getting to about 2 or 3 inches tall. I didn't prick them out individually. I did them in little clumps, because what I do is I pick off the leaves as and when I want them. So because I've now pricked those out, I'm going to sow a few more lettuce seeds. So when the first lot are done, then the second lot are ready, and I'll keep doing that every month. Now, I also have some flowers. Now, these little flowers you will sow in the same way that I'm going to show you all the seeds so far. And these are aubrietia. I love aubrietia. They are really pretty and they're just absolutely gorgeous. They will spread and they are perennials, so they will come back year after year and they will just get bigger and bigger. So they're very low, they're ground covering. So if you've got, say, a rock garden, or you've got sort of round a pond and you've got some nice large stones there, they'll just sort of cover those, and it just, I think they look wonderful. The other bits and pieces I've got to show you now, these I will sow outside, directly outside. So I've got some varieties of radish, they can go in now. Got 2 varieties of radish there. I've got spring onions, I've got beetroot, and I've got lots and lots of carrots, different shapes and sizes and colours. I love these, the rainbow ones. They come in all sorts of different colours. So there's those, and there's a few more. So don't go away. So I've separated these ones out because these ones I will sow different to all of those ones. So it is now the time to sow your sweet corn. So whatever variety of sweet corn you have. I am doing edamame beans for the first time this year, or for the first time ever actually. And I have got some very long cucumbers as well. Pumpkins, nearly there. And courgettes. I've got green ones and I've got yellow ones. So I think that's it. And obviously there's going to be lots more pricking out to do. So what I will show you first of all is how I'm going to sow a majority of the seeds, and then we'll move on to the other ones. I'm going to sow the herbs to start with, and I will do them in these little cells that I've got here. I just find them much easier. So what you need to do is you need to put some multi-purpose compost down the bottom, just level it off a little bit. Don't pat it down too hard, because the roots, the little baby roots, have got to actually try and get through it. So if you push it down too hard, they won't be able to. So what I will do before I sow any seeds is I will just give it a quick water, just like this. Make sure you get to the corners. Now the reason that I water the compost beforehand, as most of you will know, is first of all it actually helps the seeds to stick to the compost, and they are immediately in direct contact with some water, so it helps them germinate just a little bit faster. Also, because when you sprinkle them, the seeds, they stick to the compost. When you then give them a quick water on top afterwards, once you've put the other little bit of compost on, the seeds don't move. So that's always a good thing. So all of these herb seeds, so I've got the coriander, I've got the sage, oregano, rocket, and the basil. I'm going to sow all of these in exactly the same way. So I will just show you one. Let's do the coriander. So just pour a few into your hand. Whoops, there we go. Now with the coriander and the basil, you can sow some now, and then maybe in about a month's time you can sow a little bit more. So just between your fingers and your thumb, if you just sprinkle a load. Oh, one's gone over there. Not too many, just on top of the compost like that. Oops, there we go. And then what we're going to do is I will cover the seeds with just a little bit more compost, not too much, just a little bit, so that you cover them up. Level it off, and then make sure that you label it really well. All of the herb seeds sow in exactly the same way. When you're watering, because they're new seeds, you need to make sure that you use fresh water from the tap. When the seeds are growing and you've got little seedlings and you've transplanted them, then you can use water from the butt. So in this tray here, I am going to sow the brassicas. And again, what I have done is I have just put some multi-purpose compost down the bottom. Use whichever one you prefer. I've watered the compost and it's just settled it down, and then I'm just going to sprinkle the seeds on top, just like that. These are the purple cauliflowers. I'm not going to do all of these because there's 25 and I don't really have the space for all of those, and I think there's only a certain amount of brassicas that you can actually eat. So what I'm going to do now is, again, I will just sprinkle a little bit of compost on the top, level it off, and then I will just give it a label. Now, once I've done all these seeds, what I will do is, before I close the greenhouse for the night, is I will give the seeds a little bit more of a water on top. And then if your temperature is still quite cold, then cover with a propagator lid. But if your temperature is fairly warm and you think that they'll be safe and warm enough in the greenhouse, then you don't need to worry about a propagator lid. What I'm going to do with the other ones is I'm going to sow them in these little square pots here. If you don't have square pots, then you can always use round ones. So we will start with the sweet corn. Now, some people do soak their sweet corn before they grow it, before they sow it. I don't. I never have done. All it does really is it sort of softens up the outside, and then they'll germinate a little bit quicker. But if you are going to do it, only do it for a couple of hours, I would suggest. Now, I am going to sow these seeds are quite old, aren't they? Yes, I think actually if these were new seeds, I would do 2 per pot, so I would sow them diagonal corners. But because these are a couple of years old, I think I should have, does that say 2020?
Yes.
Yeah, 2020. Okay, so these are about 3 years old, so the germination rate on them, sorry, Kai's here doing the camera, bless him. So, and I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't see. So because these are about 3 years old, what I will do is I will sow 4 per pot. So hopefully at least 1 will come up. So if your seeds are old and you're sowing 4, then put 1 in each corner. If you've got a circular pot, north, south, west and east. All right. Now I tend to find that if I put them on the top like that to start with, so do all your pots, stick them on the top before you push them down. Reason being, if you get distracted, you forget where you've got to. All right. So this is why I do it this way. So once you've put them on the top, then you need to put your finger over the top of the seed and just push it down. Now you only need to push it down just above your first knuckle, just like that. Now if you haven't compacted the compost, they should go down very easily. Can we see that? There we are. Can you see them all in there? Now all we then need to do is to just fill those little holes up with a little bit more compost. And then once we've done them all, then we will just give them a water from the top. Let the water soak through, then give them another little water and let that water soak through. Just remember the seeds are down to about here. So if you just give them a quick sprinkle on the top, the water is not going to get down to them. Once they start germinating and you can see them up here, then you can water from the bottom. Okay, because then they're a little bit more established. And then if you water too much from the top, then they will rot. So that's the sweet corn. Now we will move on to the pumpkins. I've got some cucumbers there and I've got some courgettes. Now all of these I will sow in exactly the same way, and it doesn't matter what variety you have of pumpkins or courgettes, sow them exactly the same. Now what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to do 2 seeds per pot. Now if both of them germinate, when you then move them out into the garden, you don't need to separate them. Keep them together, they will be perfectly happy. And again, however many you're doing, lay them on the top first before you push them down. Now when we push them down, we want them to be that way. We don't want them to be, whoops, that way in the soil. If they're that way, then the water will run on top of them, and if you water them too much, then they will rot. So they've got a less likely to rot if they're that way. Okay, so get hold of it and just push it down. And again, you're pushing it, the seed down about that far, just like that. And again, we'll fill the little holes in. And just like the sweet corn, we'll water from the top, let it drain, water a little bit more, let it drain, because again, the seeds are down to here. Now, finally, we will move on to the edamame or soya beans. Now, I will sow these exactly the same way as I sow peas. If you don't have a problem with mice and squirrels, then you can sow these directly outside. But I have a problem with both of those, so I have to start them off inside and then I can move them outside. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to sow 4 in each pot, 1 in each corner, again north, south, west and east if you've got a circular pot. And again, when you push them down, just push them with your finger, and again just above the first knuckle, just like that. 3, 4. There we go. And then just fill them up with water. If you are sowing these directly outside, then make a little drill, so a little long sort of trough, as it were, about 1 inch deep. Scatter your peas along the trough, then water carefully, cover up with soil and make sure that you stake either end. They will need supporting with sticks, so you can put the sticks in as soon as you've sown the peas and then they've got something to grow up, or you can wait until they start to germinate and then put the peas in, then put the sticks in. Old twigs will work just as well as bamboo canes. Outside, what I'm going to sow are a selection of radishes. Whatever radishes you have, you need to sow in the same way. Oh, I need more fingers. Okay, some spring onions, again, whatever variety, sow in the same way. Beetroot, and a variety of carrots as well. So I will only show you how to sow one of these because all the others are exactly the same. So what I've done is I've put my little line in here. If you can do a straight line without using a line, then by all means. If I tried that, it would go all over the place. So we don't do these things. I like things in a straight line when it comes to a vegetable patch. So what you need to do first is you need to weed the area, make sure that there's no weeds in there because they will be competing with the seeds, and the seeds of your veggies usually end up losing out. Just give the soil a quick turn over just to loosen it all up again, because it does tend to get a little bit compacted during the winter months. And if you find any stones, then remove the stones. So what we need to do then is we need to make a little trough, a little run. So we just use the back of the trowel, or the front of the trowel, just to scoop out a little line all the way along. This should be very easy because you've turned the soil over. I do have some manure which I put on, and I got it from a guy called Mr. Muck. So a friend of mine uses it and she swears by it. So this is the first year I've used it, so we will see. So I sprinkled some of that on in the autumn, and the worms have been doing the job for me, which is wonderful of them. There is still plenty of time to put some manure on, so don't worry about that. So once you've done your little trough, then you need to just water all along the trough. Woo! I'm going to end up falling over in a minute. Okay. Now, the reason I do this, I'll come and sit down here before I fall down. The reason I always water the trough first is because it actually, when you sow the seeds, if it's slightly breezy outside and you're sowing really light seeds, if you've watered in the trough, then the seeds will stick to it and they are less likely to blow away. And again, they're immediately in contact with water. So I've got the beetroot ones here, but as I say, all the other ones do in exactly the same way. Now, carrots and onions, sow those together. So sow one row of carrots, one row of onions or leeks, and then another row of carrots, because they're companion planting. So the smell of each one will deter the bugs that will kill the other one, or, or will feast on the other one. So beetroot, they're very weird seeds. They're really quite knobbly. And if you've got chard, you will notice that the seeds are very, very similar. I don't know if you can see these. Can you see those seeds there? They are just very lumpy and bumpy, so they're really easy to sow. So all you need to do is once the water that you put in the trough has disappeared, you just get between your thumb and your finger, you take a pinch of seeds and you just sprinkle them along the trough. Okay, if they're close together, it doesn't matter. Beetroot like growing with a buddy. And when they do grow, and they'll all be different sizes, so you'll harvest the bigger ones first, and then you'll leave space. The space that you've left, the smaller ones will then grow and they will take that space. So don't worry about positioning them, sort of 1.5 inches, 2 inches apart, okay? Don't worry about them being close to one another. Whoops. I haven't been drinking, honestly. Not yet, anyway. So I'll just sprinkle all the way up the line. I need a few more. Oh, this could be interesting. Oh, there we go, just like that. And then once you've sown your seeds, then you just need to cover the little trough up very carefully with some water. Not with some water, with the soil, sorry. Okay, so just gently brush it over the top. Don't compact it, just brush it over very carefully, just like that. Right the way to the end. And then make sure that you label the line. If you are sowing more than one line then of beetroot or of carrots, then I would suggest leaving about 9 inches between each line, so it gives you space to be able to weed in between and also space for them to grow. If you're doing spring onions, then I would suggest about 6 inches between each line. Okay, so that is what I will be getting up to in April. As you can see, there is an awful lot to do. There is still plenty of pricking out to do. So every minute that I have spare, I will be down here in the greenhouse and out in the garden sorting everything out. I won't do everything today. If it is still a little bit chilly where you are, maybe just hold off from sowing some seeds just for a week or two, but you know your temperature where you are better than I know your temperature. I live in the south of the UK, basically as far south as you could possibly get. So if you live sort of up north, your temperature does tend to be quite a lot different from mine. Because I'm by the seaside, I tend not to get a huge amount of frosts, where inland they will. So it's something that we've got used to, but then obviously we get the salt that comes in. So swings and roundabouts, really. So that is all of that. I will, as I sow everything, I will label it, I will water it, And just be aware that yes, it may still be a little bit nippy outside, but if you've got a greenhouse, it does get very warm in here. So make sure you check your seeds and your seedlings every day and give them a water if necessary. Well, I hope you found what I've shown you useful, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Bye bye.